Mr. Ruiz.
Here.
Mrs. Geiger. Mrs. Edwards.
Here.
Mr. Benson.
Here.
Ms. Vedder.
Okay. We can go to Ann. She got the.
I have a little bit. Just to keep up to date, through November, we've processed over 45,000 invoices. We're currently working on preparation for year-end, closing out departments' needs for as of 12/31. Books will still be open through part of February to still book 2013 expenses. We're working on the confirming the tax levy with management and budget, and we're wrapping up various grants that have year-end dates and various extensions, working on reconciliation of the assets and reporting for year-end, and just very busy.
Veteran.
If anybody needs anything, let me know.
Any questions, Branch?
Thank you.
Okay. Grants. I think they're busy writing grants. We'll go to the resolutions. The first is to modify the county budget. Moved by
I'll move it.
Jean, second. I'll second it. Questions for Josh?
I just have one question. The auction services, is that on a percentage basis or is that a flat fee? That 211?
That's another one of those washes. We budget a number, but
Right.
depending on the amount of parcels that go through the auction, they get a flat fee per parcel. So if
Oh.
you have more parcels than we anticipated, you just increase our revenue. The bidders have to pay that, and we just pass that on to the auction company. So we put a number in, but it can be up or down depending on the auction.
Thanks.
All in favor?
5-0.
Second resolution is to apportion the mortgage tax to the towns.
Motion.
Moved by Jean, second. Cora? Any questions? All in favor? Okay, the third resolution is to adopt the fee
5-0.
schedule for the Office for the Aging Volunteer Recognition Luncheon Journal and Quarterly Newsletter.
Motion.
Moved by Jean, second by, I'll second it. I believe we have some representatives here to.
Debbie and
Debbie
Karen.
Allen.
It's not costing us any money. Do
Nope.
whatever you
No,
guys
it's
do.
gonna make us money, it's gonna bring in revenue, because we've been losing revenue for the last 3 years. So we actually would bring us some revenue, and I think it might do very, very well.
So you haven't actually done it before?
No, we haven't, it's
Okay.
it's an idea that came out of Rockland County, and
Mhm.
we'd like to give it a shot and see how it goes.
Uh-oh. I lost my phone.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
5-0.
Thank you. The fourth resolution is to authorize the county attorney to pay professional pursuant to 32511. This is Romer, Wallens, and Minot. A motion
I'll move it for discussion.
by Jean, second.
Kitty.
Kitty for discussion. I don't believe Sam's here yet.
I do have, some concerns about that. If you look at the resolution, it says, investigated personnel complaints of the Division of Health and Family Services, the limit was exceeded.
Benson out now.
In regard to the resolution, I think, I have concerns about the way internal complaints are handled, and the fact that information on these complaints is known to a few based on what I believe is an everything is confidential culture, which has led to several very real situations where legislators were asked to make decisions, only to discover these decisions led to outcomes that we were unaware of. One example being the
Benson
recent
back in.
internal fraud
Number
arrests,
5.
which were dismissed as unfounded, not once internally, but twice. So this
You should pull
is
Sam on.
unacceptable to have allowed the basis of the complaint to continue for over a year and a half unresolved.
Annie.
So now we have another Romer report, confidential report, that legal has requested for due to confidentiality. Once again, we have not been privy to any information, more than told it is to investigate complaints at Family Services. This report has been held since mid-September, a report that I feel has been talked about, but I believe there's very real concerns in programs that protect children. I cannot support the appropriation of these additional funds in excess of a cap that was set by a prior resolution on another confidential report, I know nothing about, of who has been investigated or asked to contribute to an investigation, and what I believe is stalling of any real reform to protect our most vulnerable, our children. So I cannot support this.
I'd say let's just have, I mean,
Excess
Sam's
cap.
not here, so let's table this until we can have a further discussion. It's probably something that we should have everybody
Good idea.
involved with.
Well, I made the motion, I'll motion the table.
Motion table by Jean, second Cindy.
Cindy.
All in favor? Okay,
5-zip table.
thank you. The fifth resolution is to create and fund a Fort Delaware concession revenue commitment within the fund balance. Motion for discussion.
I'll motion.
Jean, second. I'll second it. Scott, I know this is something you kinda had been working on, so do you wanna just?
Yeah, what we're trying to do is, I've been meeting with Deborah Conway and Kristen Porter, who help run the fort on a yearly basis. The problem with the fort is we have this wonderful facility that we own, and we have sort of hamstring it. We tie it up, and it's not allowed to grow and to reach out into the community the way it probably should. So in these conversations with Deborah and Kristen, we tried to find some small things that we might do to help the fort enhance its presence on the river. Some of the things that we'll do subsequent to this would be to try to put in Wi-Fi there so it can become a quasi-visitor center along the river, along Route 97. This will help them in running their gift store. What happens right now because of government, because they have to put in a request for ordering items in the middle of the year. By the time it goes through all of the process, the year is over, they lose things, they're not able to sell things in the gift store. By setting this funding aside, it'll allow them to operate like a small business. They will order their goods from this fund. They will, throughout the year, be able to order more goods. It would all be vouchered and reconciled through management budget and audit. But it would allow them to operate for the year without all the encumbrances. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's a small step in the right direction, but that's what it's about.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
$9,000 souvenir revenue, they handle. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I remember going there as a kid on school trips.
Right.
I don't know if they still do that, I hope they do.
They do.
They do. They're going to try and amend that. Right now, they do it at the end of the year where the schools are really uncomfortable doing it. They'd rather do it in the beginning. So that's another step we're going to be looking at, is maybe extending their season a little bit so that they would be able to do it in the beginning of the year. But there's a couple of little things, and I'll bring them as we get to them. But this one was immediate.
I'm fine with this.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Same as here.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
5-zip.
Thank you very much. Ira, back to you.
Do you need me to make more copies? Oh,
Here, this,
really?
Do I have copies?
It's enough.
I'll make a copy for you.
I got
Here,
one.
Annie.
No, I got one now, thanks.
I'm sorry, Ken.
So, it looks like we're gonna end this year on a good note. On sales tax, as you know, we've been running behind as much as almost $550,000 at some point in sales tax most of the year. In October, we started to pick up, and the last 3 payments have been very positive. So at the present time, we're 136, almost 137,000 more than last year. The mortgage tax, which has been higher than it's been in years, all year, continues to grow, and now we're up $200,000 over where we were last year. The room tax is down, but we've got a big payment coming up. One of our bigger resorts filed a report but didn't send us a check, and we expect that payment either this week or next week. And then we've got a final report this month, which should put us well above last year's number. So that's all good news. We did list on the bottom here a couple of these options on retirement, you know, we can always pay the retirement in this month, and there's a discount for doing it. I don't think we've ever done it since I've been here, and probably before that. Obviously, if we had the cash on hand, we would, and of course, the number now, this number is much bigger than it's been in many years. So that payment will be made in the end of January, not in December.
It's just a cash flow reason? Is that
Yeah,
the-
oh, yeah. And I do have a cash flow report too. I mean, I started this conversation by saying we're gonna end the year on a good note. And basically we are. We always have cash flow issues, particularly at this time of the year. And then, once the tax bills are levied on January 1st, the towns start collecting. By the end of the month, they're made whole. And we start getting our cash. So it's a matter of getting really through the end of this month and January. And it's difficult with the cash flow. But the other report I wanted to give you, we usually get rated through Moody's rating service. There was one year we used Moody's and S&P when we did the ARRA bonds because S&P was involved in that, so we got rated by both. We got notified by S&P because the last couple of years, I mean, we just continue to use Moody's, and Moody's has been good to us. We got a notification from them recently that they were, you know, no longer gonna rate us because we didn't respond to a request for some information, and we looked back and found that, you know, we never got it. Sometimes, you know, with the network here, information we should get doesn't get to us because it reads it as junk mail, or even worse, sometimes we don't even get it in junk mail. And we were able to convince S&P that we didn't get it, and we were willing to submit the information late. And we were notified as a result of this process that S&P has not only re-rated us and kept our rating, but S&P has increased our bond rating from an A+ to a AA with a stable outlook. And I've done a report which I'll hand out to you. But a couple of the highlights they mention are the county's economy, which they think is very positive. And I will note that this was finalized apparently in their office even before the results of the referendum, so it's not casino driven.
So they base it on the fact that we bottomed out and we can only go up?
No. No, they wouldn't increase our rating for that. They actually consider our economy to be good and stable, as has Moody's in the last report as well.
We don't wanna drag it out
And
now.
they comment on the county's budgetary flexibility being strong, budgetary performance, strong liquidity, etc. So there's a whole list here. I attached it to my report, and I'll hand it out.
Thank you.
All right, this is great news,
Yes,
thank you.
it is.
And thank you for catching it before you got by us once we
Yeah.
found it in the junk mail.
Yeah, and we thought it was
Great.
worthwhile pursuing.
That's
and
excellent.
we
It makes a big difference.
Worked out well. Thank you, Kate.
So in terms of where we are, you know, we won't know until next quarter, kind of where we are in terms of how we did,
Right.
based
Year
on
end.
the, whether it's now uncommitted or
Right.
unrestricted.
Right. When we do the books, it takes 2 or 3 months.
You likely won't know, the auditors will probably wrap up sometime in the end of March, April
Right.
timeframe. That will be, because we still collect, for example, sales tax through January,
Right.
that it is really for 13, so there's a lot of things that still,
Yeah.
big numbers too, I mean, that's a huge number, so that, you don't really have a firm number probably until the end of the first quarter.
I would just like to
question, if I may, and I appreciate all the positive pieces. I'm just curious about the room tax. I see that it's down and perhaps less people are staying in the area. But I remember a discussion a while ago about, spot checking to make sure that in fact the places are appropriately paying the room tax. Is anything going on?
It's money in the 2014 budget, in the preliminary budget. And if it stays in the preliminary budget, which I hope it will, we will be doing that in 2014, but there's nothing going on right now, other than what we do in our office. But, you know, we don't do.
I'm just curious because I know a piece of the monies that was supposed to go, or that in the past had gone to the Visitors Association, was held back for,
Administrative expenses.
right.
It
and
didn't include that,
missed so,
Kitty, in the tentative budget for 14, they can get no less than 85% of the room tax. So that's what's in the contract line for the Visitors Association. There's this $20,000 appropriated for a room tax audit. We don't know necessarily how much it'll be. Hopefully it's less than that. And then there's $50,000 for their matching program, where they match a dollar for dollar what the businesses are advertising. So they're getting 85, but then there's this other 70 as part of that extra 15% for room tax related things and Visitors Association related things.
thank you.
I just wanna thank Ira and everybody that did that. Really positive news.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Nancy and the rest of the accounting staff worked on that. And,
Thank you.
we were very, very pleased, needless to say.
Did putting in that reserve policy help us?
Yeah, they mentioned it specifically.
Two other quick things, one procedural. Normally, we have to have, in order to clean up the line items, at the year-end meeting, we usually have to come in to have a budget modification they work on for days to try to get crammed in before the 31st. I talked to Josh, if it's okay with everybody, we can, I think, just authorize him to make the necessary, because it's just between departments, it's not increasing or decreasing the total budget, but it's a procedural thing that we used to get written up by the auditors if we didn't do by year end. So if it's okay with everybody, rather than have to rush in here to do that, we could just authorize Josh to make those year-end movements to keep all the budget lines in line. He'll send them out to everybody so you can see them and look at them. If you have any questions, it would alleviate the need to have to try to grab a meeting together just for that single purpose. So
We can do it on the 19th.
it won't be ready.
It's hard to have, there's a lot of volume. It's hard to get everything done in that time frame. And then, like I said, some of the stuff are somewhat unknown, like we have payroll that runs through January that affects this year. So there's some things that bleed into the new year that you won't know for certainty until.
So you'll just let us know what.
Yeah, I'll send you out the
normal format, the spreadsheet, but it's certainly allowable. It just makes administratively, they can do it right up to the end of the year then. So if there's, we can just get a consensus if it's okay with everybody. I don't think we need a resolution.
I just think we should let him do his job.
Yeah, as long as
Let me
there's a
look,
list.
Sim, if we do, we'll
Okay,
potentially put it on executive.
So does it ever happen that you have to actually ask for, money to be moved, out of reserves in order to do that, or it's just
It's
kind of?
departmental line items.
These would be more like moving from office supplies to advertising, like they're
Yeah.
run-of-the-mill things. I mean, if a department or someone needs more money, that probably would come back to the board.
Just so long as we know what.
And the,
It's basically just changing line
Yeah.
items. You're gonna, for argument's sake, you're taking something out of office supplies and you're putting it into, travel or telephone or
advertising,
whatever,
yes.
right?
alright, so that's good. The second thing is, Ira Cohn had brought up a couple of, potential revenue changes that, the county could look to undertake regarding transfer tax and some mortgage tax, and I think they're worthwhile discussions to have, but they require a lot of moving parts and some policy direction from us, so, the if it's okay with everybody, we'll try to put them on starting in January, and he can do a little research as to what would be required, what are the pros and cons of some of these actions, but certainly a discussion going into hopefully what we see as an increased period of growth to at least explore some potential, so that's okay. Maybe for January, you can start maybe with the transfer tax one and kind of
Okay.
flush out what, I know some of them require home rule legislation, some are, you know, there's pluses and minuses, but we should have the discussion, because it's worthwhile, I think.
The other one I mentioned was the, I think, you may be thinking of the issue about generating revenue from writing some, our own in-house title insurance. I know I copied you on that. I didn't hear back from you. It's just an ongoing discussion, that's why, I mean, I had a title guy in my office yesterday with an issue, and we discussed it. And, you know, my plan is to get the local abstract companies together, to see if we could work something with them jointly, because in most problems, in most cases, the problem they have is with us, with our foreclosure. But again, we can discuss it next month, but,
Slate of those.
I think it's something we could be very successful in doing.
Just so a little more food for thought. I think sometime next year, it doesn't have to be immediate. I think we should have a discussion regarding the room tax. If the casinos go through as we think they're gonna go through, one of the biggest revenue sources we're gonna have is that room tax. And do we still wanna keep the same system we have in place?
Yeah, that's gonna require home rule legislation as well.
Yeah, it's something that we should be thinking
I
about
agree.
now.
I agree.
On that same line of thought, I think with the, potential for Class 3 gaming coming here, I think there's a likelihood that some of these hotels may change hands. And I'd like to see the county adopt a policy, which I would like to see the IDA follow, that if these properties are sold, that there's actually an audit of any room tax that's owed to the county.
Absolutely.
And that the county's made whole in any transaction that transpires as a result of sale of property. I think it's very important, because it could be substantial number of dollars sitting there, and the county needs to be made whole. So I'd like to see that moving forward.
Is there anything like that at all in place, Ira? I mean,
No.
normally the closing, things are reconciled, but that's not one of the things
No.
that would appear at a closing. Then I think
But
that's
any
a very good idea.
unpaid, filed and unpaid room tax would be levied on the tax bill like you did with was it the Raleigh or the Home Whack that one year?
It's interesting because it's under our law, a personal obligation. In fact, if the operator doesn't collect it, the operator becomes personally liable. But there is that aspect where if it's unpaid, it can end up being levied on the tax bill. But if it's not levied on the tax bill at the time of the closing, it's not reconciled.
I think it's a
Definitely
great
worth
idea.
looking at.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure
No
we're
question.
made
Any public comment?
Oh, wait.
Hold on one
Can I
second.
ask a
I'm sorry.
question?
Go ahead.
Just quickly reading through this report that you submitted, and you mentioned it in your report, and it's also mentioned here in the Standard S&P, with regards to the county does not perform long-term financial planning. That
Yeah.
sentence. So what would have to happen in order for that to take place? Because then that, I think, would cover the things that you have mentioned here in your
Okay.
last paragraph about the unresolved issues.
Yeah, I think we're working on that, right, Judge? Long-term budget. More than
Yeah, I mean, we've,
more than a one-year operating budget.
Or capital,
well, the capital is a 6-year
Yeah.
plan, then,
but this is a slightly different
Yeah, this would be,
timeframe.
right.
We looked at a while
Moody's
back
mentioned that as well.
getting a 5-year budget plan similar to the capital plan. It does cost some money, and that's why it didn't end up going anywhere at the time, but maybe now that things are in a little better shape, we can find some money to allocate for that. It's definitely worthwhile. Some other counties do it. It's,
Like I said, both rating agencies have mentioned the same thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned it also in the last paragraph of your report. So what has to happen in order for that to take place?
you have to increase capacity over in the budget office, or like I know other counties hire, use either their auditors or someone like that to help prepare they call it a multi-year plan.
Well, we're doing something like for the ACC you've authorized because of the complexity with federal and state healthcare regulations and on the revenue side. I know the controller's office has a pretty simplistic tool that can give you some high-level projections. It summarizes funds. It doesn't go into really a lot of detail. But we can look at that internally to see if that would be useful and show the board that and see if it's something that's useful, and if you potentially like more information, you may have to look at some other software vendor. I don't know, we haven't really researched it that far, but we could probably start with the controller's office. They have an Excel spreadsheet that can assist municipalities with doing some of that.
So no resolution would be required?
Not to be able to, that's a public, any municipality can go on their website and use that tool.
So it would be a starting point?
Yeah, I think we could start with that and see the pros and cons of that, and if there's something further you need, we'd have to research and see what else is out there.
And that would be like February or something like that, is that too soon?
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look at it. We can let you know before the January meetings, whether it's January or February. But yeah, certainly the first quarter sometime we can do that.
And my second point, with regards to this report was this like a press release, this report,
Yes.
or this is internal?
Both. I'm gonna give a copy to Dan as soon as we're done.
Can we get this up to NISAP for their newsletter? Because I think, I hear things about Sullivan County wherever I go, people know, in some cases more than I do, about what's going on. And, I just think it's important that good news like this does go through all the counties.
I can send that up this morning.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And also the Office of the State Controller, has he seen this?
No,
His audit
nobody's
team?
seen this.
So can we, is it all right to send it to the State Controller's office as well?
I'm sure it's all right. I don't know how much interest they have in it, but.
Well, they're only interested in auditing us, when
I'd be happy to do that, Cory.
I just think the more good news that we can get out
Yeah.
there and publicize, the better.
I agree.
Thanks.
Scott?
Going back to the tabled resolution on the fee for Romer, Sam is here now, and there are 8 of us here. Do we have that discussion now, or do you want to hold it off for another week?
I would rather hold it off until we get some more information.
But we need to get information from Sam
Well,
and he's here.
that's why I thought we would
so-
have to get some
Do
information.
we really want the information at a meeting or an executive session?
I think
Then
we
let-
should wait,
let's go
need
into-
more information about the report.
Can that, but Sam, is it time sensitive? Or can it wait till January, because we need to go into executive session?
Just let me know what information you want.
Well, you
Well,
want
they-
more information,
Huh?
correct?
Thursday and executive.
Yeah.
If that's all right with everybody?
Yeah, a couple of things. You're talking about revenue streams in other ways, and I've mentioned it before, and I'll go back and I'll hit it again, is that there's a public safety fee on any mass gathering sales for tickets, like at Bethel Woods, of $1 or $2, with 50% going to the sheriff and 50% going to the DA's office, to augment what we already give, not to supplement. And, when you go there and rent a chair, you pay $5 on the back of the tickets. It says there's sales tax included. So the collecting of the fee and passing it on is no different than the sales tax I'd have to collect. So I think it's something you have to definitely look at as a fee. It's not anything to do with the Bethel Woods. It's no different than Ticketmaster doing a fee. That's one. By the way, congratulations to you, Ira, to everybody within this room and staff who were able to, over the years, increase and work hard and diligently to do our cash flow better and be more aware of the dollars, where they're going, and getting to a AA. It's taken a lot of work and slow steps, and I've sit here and listen. You have to be concerned that maybe they would downgrade us because we're in tough times, and you kept our head above water. So, congratulations to all. I said something positive, Cory.
Yeah, when I used to come to these meetings before I was elected, I used to hear bankruptcy in practically every one, and I haven't heard that in the last 2 years, so that says a lot.
Back to something that you alluded, which you brought up with the IDA, and this is I call it the Nonies phenomenon, where Nonies had a lot of tax breaks
tax incentives to come here and open up their store, their business, and then they flipped it to a major corporation, a national corporation. And once we give tax breaks, I think maybe should we have a flip fee, as I call it, that where we get a piece of that, and that money goes directly, not to subsidize any IDA overhead, it goes directly to be split up according to all the taxing districts that were cut out of getting any revenue while that took place. Because they should not be the sole beneficiaries of their investment, because when you give a tax incentive, we are investing in that company in an indirect way. And then the last thing is, I lost my notes, we'll get them back, okay? The public hearing the other night. And you know how I felt about that, because I got up and went to the bathroom, and I came back, it was over. When you have a public hearing, the IDA does this. When they have a public hearing, they keep it open for 5 or 10 minutes in case somebody can't make it. First of all, having a 5:30 in the afternoon is, oh yeah, well, it's after work. So people may want to get here, but forget it, we're not gonna make that timeline because of where we live. But there is no leeway for anybody who is late. So that was number one. Number two is I have one question. How can the public comment on the budget when you have not told us how you're gonna get from that 3 point something down to 2.219? You're supposed to be cutting to make the budget lines to cut back. How am I, or anybody else, supposed to know where those cuts are? So I feel you have to tell me so I can comment. I don't wanna see 11th hour deal like last year, because that's not fair to anybody. Thank you.
Any questions? Public comment? Motion to adjourn? 17:15. Thank you.
Did you make out with?